Alright, so my boy Trump made history by tanking the Dow by 1,600 points, effectively screwing over the retirement plans of every single working class American and draining every high schooler's Robinhood account. But it's kind of hard to navigate how a massive and complicated global trade war is going to affect you. I can give you the TLDR right now. You're probably fucked for the next few years, but it's a little more complicated than that. Alright, so let's first set up the context, beyond the scope that Trump is a little special. Trump has been running with this tariff strategy from the very start. Back in 2018, during his first term, Trump launched a full-blown trade war with China, 25% tariffs on steel, 10% on aluminum, and a laundry list of other imports. The logic? To bring manufacturing back to America, to protect the working man. Why? It's because Trump is against outsourcing manufacturing to China, unless it's for his merch or his fucking Bible. The tariffs would increase the cost of outsourcing, which is supposed to force American companies to shift their manufacturing back to the US. The problem with this logic, other than the hypocrisy, is that if you even put 2 seconds of thought into it, you realize that there's so many issues with that reasoning. The reason why companies outsource manufacturing to China in the first place is because it's way cheaper. Like dramatically cheaper, given that there's essentially no proper labor regulation or employee protections, especially in sweatshops. Companies used to manufacture in the US back during the Industrial Revolution, but then workers started losing their limbs and the factory owners would just replace them like light bulbs. No compensation, no severance, just a damn, that's crazy before booting them out of the factory. So workers started to unionize. They fought back. Labor laws were passed, regulations got tighter. The US government started to say things like, hey, maybe 9-year-olds shouldn't be working 14-hour shifts at the mine. And over time, things slowly got more humane. But that safety came at the cost for these corporations. Healthcare, overtime, breaks, it all cuts into the bottom line. So they started outsourcing their manufacturing to countries with little to no labor regulation. It took time, but over the next few decades, essentially all manufacturing got outsourced internationally. Okay, so Trump wants to make outsourcing so expensive that companies are forced to return to the US for manufacturing. His plan to do this? The tariffs. The problem? Let's go back to the 2018 tariffs on China. They did not work. 1. Companies did not return to the US for manufacturing because even with the tariffs, since the US actually gives a fuck about worker protection, labor regulation, and environmental safety, it's still cheaper to manufacture internationally, or in this case, China. That, and there are also a ridiculous amount of other countries who don't give a fuck about their workers. So it's still cheaper to just entirely move their manufacturing to a different country. 2. Companies did not pay the tariffs. You did. You think a company exec who's already ethically compromised enough to take advantage of an international lack of worker rights in order to give themselves a summer bonus, you think that person is actually going to pay the tariff? Nah, not directly. He passed that shit on to you. He literally just hiked up the price, blamed it on inflation, and went golfing in his summer house with his other fat. 3. China did not take that shit lightly. Yes, in terms of human rights, China is the equivalent of a third world country, but in terms of economic weight, they're doing fine. They retaliated by placing tariffs on soybeans, porks, and other American exports, which devastated US farmers, and the government had to bail them out with over $28 billion in your tax money. So yeah, we've established tariffs didn't work before. But what about now? I mean, the world's changed. Well, Trump is back in office and he's ready for bigger and better things. And on April 2nd, also known as Liberation Day, we got our first look at those things. And surprise, surprise, it was more fucking tariffs. Yeah, he started handing out tariffs like they were candy on Halloween. There's a 10% universal tariff for both our adversaries and our allies. For China, a 34% additional tariff on top of that. For the EU, an additional 10%. An additional 36% for Vietnam, 39% for Cambodia, 37% for Madagascar, and pretty sure he tariffed a few uninhabited islands. It's kind of insane. But there's no time limit for these tariffs, and there's no exemption process. Everyone is getting taxed. Basically, it's a financial carpet bomb and a spit to the faces of our allies. Germany called it economic vandalism. French said that it violates the WTO rules, and even Canada, the most polite country in the world, basically told the US to fuck off. These aren't minor diplomatic complaints. These are threats of retaliatory tariffs, trade route diversions, and the exclusion of the United States in future alliances and discussions. And on top of essentially burning bridges with a lot of our closest allies, it still does not solve for US manufacturing for all the same reasons that it didn't in 2018. Okay, so we've got the background, we've got the context. So now let's get back to the important thing. You. How is all this political bullshit going to affect you? So, let's first start off with retirement. When the Dow tanks 1600 points in a single day, that's not just a line on a graph. That's your 401k, that's your IRA, that's your pension fund, your grandpa's golf money, your mom's someday I'll retire money. It's people's lives. Anyone with exposure to an equity-based retirement account, which is most people, just lost nearly everything overnight. And unless the market makes a miraculous comeback, spoiler, it won't. It's only going to get worse. That money is going to take years to rebuild. Decades maybe. Decades that the average American cannot afford. Okay, but what about groceries? The thing is, we get our coffee from Vietnam, bananas from Guatemala, avocados from Mexico, grapes from Chile, potatoes from Canada, apple juice from China. Look, I could keep going, but the point is that we import a lot of fucking food and the price for all of them just went up. Experts estimate by the end of this year, prices will increase by up to 5%. Now, this may not seem like a lot, but the average American is already struggling to maintain a proper budget. So a 5% increase on nearly all fruits, veggies, sugar, and foreign food products, all things that they're going to need to buy every week, it can get out of hand very quickly. And it's not just imported foods. Even domestic products are going to see price hikes because the cost of imported materials used in farming and production is going up. You might be worried about that car you've been saving up for, and you're gonna have to put a pause on that because the 25% tariff on imported cars and car parts means pricing is going to increase significantly. I'm talking somewhere between 2 to 10 grand, depending on the car model and the part. And your favorite devices? Well, nearly all tech products you use heavily relies on China for both manufacturing and the import of tech parts. With the new tariffs, say it with me, pricing is going to increase significantly, and as usual, the cost is going to be passed on to you. Expect your next iPhone to run you well over $1,400 just for the base model. Me personally, I'm more of an Xbox guy, but both the Xbox and the PlayStation are both projected to rise by about $150 minimum. Okay, what about small businesses? Maybe there's a local place you really like, or maybe you want to start something of your own. Let's be honest here. Apple, Amazon, Google, Facebook, all these big companies, they're going to be fine. They can survive and they can recover. They'll just rework their supply chain and jack up prices. But your favorite local coffee shop that also sells niche imported ceramics, that Etsy seller who custom prints mugs from overseas suppliers, that small tech startup building gadgets out of a garage using Chinese parts, they're screwed. Small businesses don't have the leverage, scale, or war chest to eat these tariff costs. Say that you're running a small business that assembles custom keyboards. Your switches, circuit boards, and keycaps all come from overseas, mostly China. Tariffs increase your cost per keyboard by $25 to $40. On a $100 product, that's a massive hit. You either raise prices and lose customers, or you eat the cost and destroy your margins. Tariffs lead to trade restrictions, custom delays, and supply reroutes. Suddenly, your 5-day supplier lead time will become 3 weeks, and you miss delivery deadlines. Small businesses live and die by fulfillment. Miss a few orders, get enough bad reviews, your brand dies. So, TLDR, tariffs aren't going to work because the price is passed down to you. Food, tech, car, clothes, everything's going to become much more expensive. Your people's life savings and retirement savings are all gone. Big corporations will survive, small businesses won't. Now, this video has a slight comedic tone to it, but being honest, I would suggest sitting down and figuring out your finances, because though everything got fucked up overnight, it's going to take years before it even starts to get better. So yeah, like and subscribe, please.